Hey, Jules Blessed Vegan, and as always, welcome to my channel. And for those of you who are new, I know you can benefit. And welcome to Joyful June, and if you're new, you're right on time. Every day is a chance to be joyful. So today, which was technically day 4, it was supposed to reframe a worry. If something's like totally concerning you, you reframe that worry and approach it in some positive manner. You do something positive to address it. And as I suggested, worries come all day long. And so there's different ways to approach it. For those of you who were following me and saw yesterday, I do just want to say that that little baby raven that was kind of funny looking, let's just say, made it through the night, praise God. And his parents are still very much dedicated and on the case, and I absolutely love that. So I'm so thrilled that both of those baby ravens made it. For me, I was just kicking it to get down all the required paperwork, because at the end of the year for a teacher, there's a lot of required paperwork. And I was putting all of that together, and you have to get a sign-off sheet, and the secretary signs something, and the principal something else, and the assistant principal something else, and some of it we sign ourselves, and just all this stuff. And I was so organized, and I felt really good about it. And that paper absolutely disappeared. Absolutely. And usually I resort to prayer. And I will ask St. Anthony of Lost Objects and St. Jude of Lost Causes by Christ to please put that in an obvious place for me. And the thing is, they may ultimately, but the clock was running out and I was freaking out. Even after I offered it up, I kept taking back the anxiety of it. And I was just like, oh, you're supposed to like put that worry aside and find something positive. Well, I was positive it was lost. So finally, I had the grace to go and humbly ask for a new one. And they accommodated me in the midst of all of it. And I ran around and got everything re-signed again. And I took care of that. And I was so happy for that. And I was trying to think. And there's another worry that I have of a precious person who was seriously injured. They got hit on their bike. And I know God has great plans for this person because he certainly could have taken them, but he didn't. And I can't help but really, really care. And I know I can't do anything for that person, especially with the COVID, right? The parents can barely get in. I can't do anything for that person but prayer. And it just reminds me again of how powerful prayer is. So I am turning that worry into an extra rosary, an extra 2 rosaries. I'm going to just keep it going, a vigil, you know. Again, like my nephew Dean, and I know some people weren't familiar with my situation with my nephew Dean, he overdosed on Super Bowl Sunday. We don't know what his thought was. I didn't think it was to take himself out. I think it was just a silly mistake. But whatever the case was, he OD'd, he was in a coma, and it was horrific. And it's taken, you know, all this time, not too bad, a little over 4 months, for when he finally said his first word, which was a really appropriate curse word, which would explain anyone who's super frustrated. So I was like, cool, he's got a fighting spirit and he's in there. And this other person hit on a bike with no helmet. But praise God, the spinal cord is intact. The face is essentially intact. And other than very brokenness, I think God has great plans, and in an induced coma will allow this person to be healed in the interim. But on our side, it's hard to see and it can be worrisome, right? All right, but I can be joyful in knowing that prayers are powerful and they're often answered. If I appear to be melting, it's because I am. I am absolutely melting, and that's okay. You know, it's much cooler today. It's only 103. And I wanted to get my steps in, so I was out there melting, praying that rosary for that friend, checking on those birds, and just doing it. So this is the aftermath, but I'm actually really grateful because I haven't really sweated in a long time. I'm realizing that my body is actually opening its pores and sweating, and I can welcome that all day long. All right, so our next joyful intention for day 5. And again, if you just joined us, if it's not even June and it's not your day 5, who cares? It's just a great intention. So for your joyful intention, you're literally just going to write down 3 things that you are grateful for. When we're teaching learning, it's so important that we do as many modalities as possible so that the brain retains the information. So from listening, of course, orally, to writing, which is the tactile, to verbally repeating whatever it is, all of those things get it inside your brain and get it inside your heart and your mind. So I would encourage you, with those 3 things you're grateful for, to literally say them out loud, to write them down, to literally record them. And take a moment with it. Can you set a timer for 3 to 5 minutes and actually take a moment for yourself, because there's a lot of power in it. I think sometimes we forget to remember how blessed we are. We forget to remember what's right. When there's a situation where somebody is in an accident like that, that's all there is. When we're in the middle of the COVID, that's all there is. When we're in the middle of riots, that's all there is. It's hard to pull out and actually see that grace continues around us, which I think is why I've enjoyed hanging out with these crows so much. Not only are they incredibly dedicated parents, which has been really refreshing to see, but it's kind of been neat to see their situation. I mean, I honestly think they had 2 of their babies fall from a nest onto cement and weren't expecting it. That when those babies fell, they weren't quite ready. Again, if I had to find joy or grace in that, school is not in session, so there aren't children chasing them or throwing rocks at them or trying to hold them, which we're not supposed to do for wild animals. So there's a lot of grace for even those crows. And I think when we look at nature around us and how the sun inevitably rises and inevitably sets, the breeze continues in the midst of the heat wave, all of those things, all of those graces are a chance for us to find joy in what can be a very painful, difficult situation. And anyone could say, well, that's easy for you to say, it's not your kid. It's easy for you to say it's not your crow. And they're ravens, they're much bigger than crows. All of that's true. But you know what? Sometimes we're just called to be prayer warriors for others. And Lord knows, if you followed my story at all, I've had my hardships as well. So again, let's go over Joyful June. Today, it was literally attempting to turn your mindset around by whatever was worrying you to try and find a positive way to address it. And for tomorrow, it is to literally physically reflect on and write down 3 things that you're truly grateful for. And it doesn't matter if it means anything to anyone but you. There are 3 things that make your heart smile, and that's everything, right? Okay, health-wise, I am on it. I'm drinking my water. I am going to get those 10,000 steps in, and I appreciate your guys' support. I will give myself a couple of my glass beads for my urge jar because I certainly have earned them. There's been some temptations. Whenever big news comes to me, I want to immediately eat wrong. I can't explain it, but for a moment, I was thinking that I actually wanted to eat right. And that's a little rare for me. Right, meaning I was thinking what phenomenal salad I could have. I was thinking what fruit I have available to me, like stuff like that. And I was really grateful for that. I will absolutely earn my sticker on day 4 of my calendar. And I'm excited to do that. And you know what? I'm just doing it. It's only one day at a time. There will always be things in our inbox. That's from Tanny Raw. She is so wise, and if you don't know her, please find her on any social media platform for health. Tanny Raw, her name's Tanya Murphy, and she always reminds us that there's always going to be something in our inbox. At the beginning of the day, I couldn't imagine I was going to hear about that bicycle accident and about that very challenging situation. I'm going to say that because I really want God to choose to heal that person completely in real time. I couldn't have known that I was going to see that, honestly. And, there's always stuff like that. Sometimes it's not as big, but it's always as difficult, All right, so as always, like if you like, join us if you haven't subscribed. Peace be with you and also with me. If you're a prayer person, God knows that person's name. Please just say whoever Juliana was referring to, bless that person and choose to heal them. And as always, peace be with their family as well, right? All right, my friends, know that I pray for you, and until we talk again, best of all, know in your heart of hearts that you are blessed.